Hello and welcome to part 2 of today, April 8th, 2015, Wednesday comic book review, part 2. I'm just saying the title. Now, welcome to Convergence, week 1. So I read 7 of the Convergence books, including the number 1 issue of the main series, and well, now I'm going to review them. I don't know why I gave such a complicated, in-depth intro this time. I guess I'm in the event sort of mood. Anywho, starting off with Convergence number 1 has this neat full wraparound cover like that. So we start off in the world of Injustice. Injustice, the video game, DC fighting game made by the guys who make Mortal Kombat. I forgot the studio name right now. Anywho, Midway? It used to be Midway. Maybe there's something else now. Anywho, we start there, and we see that their world has been utterly destroyed by the events of the Injustice comic. I haven't read it, to be honest, but I played the game. Pretty okay game. I enjoyed it for a while. I named Nightwing. Nightwing's cool. And so their city was destroyed by the events of their comic. And so Telos, this big guy here, the living planet, basically decides to just kill their entire world, calling them a failed experiment, and resets, basically. We then start the comic. I mean, you know, that just shows, okay, this is what Telos is capable of, and just destroying this entire city all whenever he wants to. But then we start the comic pretty much in earnest, I guess, with Batman from Earth 2 warping onto Telos, Telos being the planet as well as the person. So Batman from Earth 2 warping into Telos, and they give a helpful, you know, who this Batman is. Who's Thomas Wayne, surgeon, and then Dick Grayson over here, also from Earth 2. And basically a lot of the cast from the Earth 2 comic book just ends up here without a city and are slowly being eaten up or attacked by this living metal that is coming from Telos, trying to create a barrier around them. Also, this woman over here, she apparently died in the Earth 2 universe, and Telos brought her back. Yeah, Yolanda Montez. It doesn't even... Yolanda. Yeah, Yolanda's a name. I don't think Volanda is, but yes. Yolanda Montez, who was dead, apparently, and Telos brought her back, which means that Telos has the ability to revive dead characters. I'm guessing this is going to be something they use in the future for whatever reason to revive people, but anywho, Telos brings all of the Earth 2 combatants onto his planet, tries to trap them in the living metal thingy, introduces them to Brainiac and the whole basically idea of convergence, but wonders why they don't have a city, because everyone else has a city, but theirs was destroyed in the events of Earth 2. Anywho, we then get the big kind of spiel, the big kind of rule set for Earth 2, I mean not for Earth 2, for Convergence, where Telos broadcasts to every city in the that he has, every city he captured. There's some very punny stuff going on here. It says, some of you came to me at a time of infinite crisis, wink wink. Others are brought here in the final moments of their 0 hour, nudge nudge, where there was a flashpoint, or a kingdom that will never come. It's all references to big DC storylines or Elseworlds books, so very tongue-in-cheek, very punny, and we get the reveal, the page that we've seen a whole bunch of times before, but with actual dialogue now, so we know what's happening. Well, not dialogue, monologue, but basically establishes the rules. This is a battle royale, no holds barred. Only one city will be left standing, sort of thing. And then we get this final page with all the Supermen kind of going at it, flying right at you. So Oh, and it's called Domesday. I just noticed that the storyline was called Domesday, which is kind of clever because there's the Domesday Book, which is a old land survey of Great Britain. I don't know why I know that, but I know that. And then in the back we get a bit more of the books that we should see in Convergence, and I'm guessing in the back of every issue they'll be adding a couple more books. We have Batman Darkest Night, which is a Elseworld where Batman becomes the Green Lantern. What else is cool here? We get New Frontier. New Frontier is really cool. I really like New Frontier. And whatever this Twilight book is, it's not the Twilight. But anyway, for a first issue, I mean, it sets up everything. The Zero issue was very Zero issue-y, in retrospect. This is the main kind of number one, sets everything up, explains all the rules, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's very on the nose, but you only had so many pages to tell the story, I guess. Could have been a lot worse. The way they set it up, it kind of reminds me more of a Magic the Gathering storyline than a comic book storyline. The whole thing feels very Planeswalker-y, I guess, and then just having all these clans battle it out feels a bit like, I don't know. It just feels very Magic the Gathering more than DC Comics, but that could just be me. But yeah, pretty okay first comic, sets everything up, gets the ball rolling. And where we get a lot more exploration, of course, of Convergence is in the spin-off books. I got 6 of them today. I forget how many of them I'm getting in total. Not all of them, because I don't have that sort of money, but starting with Speed Force, Convergence Speed Force, number 1 of 2. And this one, we follow Wally West. Wally West is back with the red hair and the classic costume. And there's a lot of that in this crossover so far, in this big event. A lot of, oh my god, they're back. They're not in the New 52, but they're back, and we get to see them again in their classic costumes and behaving like they should. And I mean, it's a lot of fan service. It's a lot of cheap, we're doing the thing that we should have done 4 years ago instead of the New 52, but it's still fun. There's still that joy of seeing old characters, I guess. That's just, it's fun. It's base cheap fun, and they got me. So all of the spin-off books, besides being, that, have a... It's really weird how they do this. They have a recap, kind of what this book, who these characters are in their own universe, but they have it in the back of the book. So you read it. So if you don't know who these characters are, you're kind of left in the dark until you go to the back of the book, and then they tell you, oh, this is who they are. It's a quick summary. It feels like it should have gone to the front of the book, though, to be completely honest. Anywho, we start with Wally West. He is running to Gotham City because there's a big temporal paradox, and he has his children in tow. And what I love is throughout this whole book, you have his children just kind of dangling behind him as he runs because they don't have super speed. So they're just dangling, tethered behind him, just flipping around and whatever. It's really ridiculous. Anywho, we see how Wally West got to Gotham City, and then he explains, and we learn in all the other spin-offs too, that all of the cities that were on Telos, trapped under the dome, have been trapped there for a year. And during that year, superheroes and villains, anyone with superpowers, lost those superpowers. And so the first kind of chunk of this book is Wally West. We see him how he's adapted to having no superpowers, and we see him trying to get back home. Nobody knows they've been under this dome, so they don't know that they're on another planet. They just think they've been separated from the rest of the world, but still on Earth. So we see him trying to adjust, trying to get the aid of other heroes and breaking down the dome, but nobody knows what's going on until we get kind of a recap of what happened in Convergence. In Convergence 1, we're shown that again, and Wally West is sees a alternate Wonder Woman in the sky, and we learn later that this is his first fight, basically. This is a hint of who he's supposed to fight in the Tournament of world city things. But instead of fighting, Flash does what he does best, and he runs off to rescue the people from Wild West World. I think it's they say it in the front. El Inferno, maybe? Kind of Western looking, I don't know. Anyway, he goes off to try and rescue them, only to discover that he is too late. And once again, we see Telos just destroying a city after it has lost. What else do we got? So yeah, the Flash is basically running around Telos now, children in tow, just dangling along. And we see him pass by a lot of the other cities. So he runs past Bizarro Land. This is Plastic Man and the Freedom Fighters, which is another tie they have going on. I don't know what this is. This looks like it could be Krypton, or New Krypton maybe. Themyscira. Not Themyscira. What is that? I don't know. Because like the helmets remind me of Thanagar. That's what I was thinking of, Thanagar. But the lightning bolts maybe something with Captain Marvel. Not quite sure. And then finally running through Zooland, or whatever it's called, from California. Follywood, California, yeah. So the animal heroes. When and I just love in all these panels you just have all the children dangling behind him. It's really comical. And of course he meets up with the speedster from Follywood, who happens to be a turtle. I'm not really familiar with this character, being completely honest, but turtle with super speed, it's ironic, get it? Haha. And then at the end of the book, of course, he is faced with an alternate Wonder Woman who is just Queen of the Amazons. And that is where we end off issue 1. Of these spin-offs, of the Convergence spin-offs, I thought this was one of the better ones I read so far. There are worse, unfortunately. And just, I think it really sets the tone. I'm glad I read this one first, because it kind of sets the tone that the rest of these follow. Sets a nice benchmark for them to live up to, and just to set the standards that I would expect now from all the other Speed Force, not all the other Convergence spin-off books. So, nice baseline set. Say that of it. That's a nice way to do. Next up, we have Convergence Superman, issue 1. This is pre-Flashpoint Superman, so kind of the classic Superman. Not like Golden Age. This is post-Infinite Crisis, pre-Flashpoint Superman. And we open on him, also in Gotham City. Also powerless, of course. Being Superman, being powerless is not an excuse for him to stop fighting crime. So we see him as a masked vigilante, very Batman-esque. And I just love the opening to this book because we see him fighting crime. He doesn't have his superpowers. He gets hit by a flamethrower, and he's talking to Lois the whole time. And Lois is like, "Remember, you're vulnerable. Be careful. You don't have your powers." We see him hit with the flamethrower. Lois is crying, and of course, as soon as he's hit, that's the moment that he gets his powers back, and it's so triumphant. The John Williams Superman music was in my head this whole time, like dun, da, 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 as this was going on. I just thought it's so great to get this classic Superman back with the red underwear, and just there's something about just Superman. It's so great, so great. And the New 52 Superman, you have some good Superman moments, but it's not, it's not the Superman. It's not the Superman whose mom sewed his costume for him. It's not the Superman with the red underwear. It's not the same Boy Scout Superman as this guy. It's the Superman, with the coiffed hair and all that, and the S curl, and it's fun. It's fun to see. And then of course the bad guys try shooting him, and they just bounce off, and it's such a triumphant few pages here, and I loved every moment of it. And then you have Superman back. You have Jimmy Olsen. He's back too. He's also in Gotham. He rescues Jimmy Olsen. It's all very kind of classic Superman stuff. And then of course he flies back to Lois. We find out that Lois is pregnant, And in the middle of all this, in the middle of the dome coming down and everyone gaining their powers all of a sudden, we just have this nice, quiet moment between Lois and Clark, and it's just very sweet. It's very sweet that you take a couple pages here just to have them talk as a loving couple, you know? And this book, it's just so good. I really like this. I really like just the first half of this book and what they do to take the time to establish that this is the Superman, you know, and this is his relationship with Lois Lane. They're bringing that back for this. Just the classic, you know, all-American Superman comic book. Kind of cliche, but I miss it. It's been a while, to be honest, and I'm glad that it's back again. No complaints at all from me. Then we get into the main meat of this book, where we have Superman, again, like Flash, exploring outside of his city, trying to find out what's going on, when he stumbles onto the people from the Flashpoint universe. So we see a quick glimpse into Flashpoint Gotham with Flashpoint Thomas Wayne, Captain Thunder, Cyborg, Project Superman, just all the Flashpoint characters. And they, of course, they're very paranoid. They're prepared to kill the other cities. And so they just get Superman flying in on radar and thinking, okay, this is a threat. We got to stop him. So, of course, they take the opportunity to do the Superman versus Captain Marvel fight, which, again, very cliche, but I have to appreciate. I have to appreciate the cliches now just because it's been a while and they're comfortable. They're comfortable, and I get, you know, it's like comfort food in comic book form. It's just Superman with the red tights beating up Shazam. It's, I don't know, it's just comfort food, I guess, is the best way to explain it, actually. And then you have the rest of the Flashpoint people join in. Big fight, Superman versus Flashpoint universe. And then we get like some kind of, you know, nuance to this, because Batman, Thomas Wayne realizes, well, if this is Superman, then, you know, maybe this is the universe that Barry was talking about in Flashpoint, and he's thinking, well, maybe we'll find a universe where my son is, where Bruce is, because, you know, he wants to see his son again. And then we have the other Superman, who's still a Superman, goes off to find Lois, because even in Flashpoint, Lois was the only person who was nice to Superman, and so they have that connection. And this book ends with basically Superman, Flashpoint with Thomas just wondering about his son, you know, can I find Bruce? And then we have Flashpoint Superman going to Lois, and then of course we have Superman, the Superman, fighting a bunch of the Flashpoint gang, and so lots of stuff they're setting up. This is a 2-issue story, and I'm guessing they'll cross over with some of the other things, but I really like it. I really like how they blend the classic, you know, just, I guess, white bread, vanilla Superman that we haven't had in a while, and then add all this nuance just by adding him in the Flashpoint universe, and just by saying, this is another universe that he's not accustomed to, and that's not accustomed to him, and then playing off that with Thomas looking for Bruce and the other Superman looking for Lois. It's one of my favorite spin-off books that I've read of Convergence so far, which only 6 of them, but still in the top half, easily. Next up, we have Convergence Batgirl, which is probably, unfortunately, the weakest of the spin-off books so far. And one big reason for this is the art. The art is just, it's not good. The faces are weird, the figures are weird, there's not enough detail, but it doesn't pull off the scratchy look in a good way. It's just, the art, it's not a pleasant book to look at. And of course, you know, I was so excited for this because, you know, as we have on the first page, we get Stephanie Brown back. And, like, Batgirl Stephanie Brown, not the Stephanie Brown that they had in Batman Eternal, which was good, but now we get, you know, the classic Stephanie Brown back, and we get Cassie Kane back. We get the pre-Flashpoint Tim Drake back. And then of course we're introduced basically right away to Catman, in the gold and brown outfit. So like there's a lot they're shoving in my face that I should love, but it's not done well enough for me to actually like accept it all and appreciate it all. Um, the art, yeah, I mean the art. It's just hard. It's a hard book to look at, and the story doesn't really do much. We have Catman and Batgirl fighting. Apparently, Stephanie Brown has been chosen as one of the contestants, I guess, for the Convergence event. But she is a year out of practice. So we have her fighting Catman, we have Cass and Tim Drake coming as backup, and then it's just a lot of backtracking from here. They stop fighting, they talk, oh, my planet's, Catman explains that he was dragged away from a fight with Grodd, and Stephanie just is out of practice, so she isn't really in the mood to fight all that much. And then we basically get a flashback to how Cassie ended up here. She was in Gotham, and she decided after the Flashpoint event, after the Convergence event, after the Dome went up, to just retire as Batgirl and become a nurse, helping people out as Cassie Kane, and learning how to do that, and learning how to solve problems without fighting. I do like how in this book we have Killer Moth try and ambush them, but he's just as ineffective as Killer Moth has always been. Essentially, they just walk away from him, which is fun, I guess. And yeah, then it's just a whole lot of Cass really doing nothing until the Dome comes down and she's revealed as one of the contestants. And then we have a short training montage of her and Cassie training together, but not much else. This book, there's just not enough steam in this book to drive it forward, I guess. And again, I want to like these characters. These are characters that I have missed, who I want to see back in action, and they're just not given enough action right now. I do hope it picks up in the next issue. There's only one issue for it to pick up in. Just because it would feel like just a complete waste should this be a not a good book. And I feel bad about that waste. However, next up is a book involving a Batgirl that isn't a disappointment. Convergence and Oracle, written by Gail Simone. I don't know why I mentioned that. Because I like Gail Simone is why I mentioned that, I guess. Anywho, we begin this issue with the Thanagarians just tearing down Inferno, utterly wrecking the place. And it's brutal. It actually reminds me of Gail Simone's run on Red Sonja, how kind of brutal it is right now. And then we see the Thanagarians take off to another city to conquer it. We then flash to Oracle and Nightwing, or Nightwing and Oracle in Gotham. Nightwing trying to keep the peace, Oracle being the taskmaster, telling Dick where to go and how to proceed as to not cause too much damage. And what's interesting about this is I think in this book we get more of an effect of what living under the Dome has been like over the past year. We really feel this effect more in this book than we do in any other issue so far. Dick is attempting to foil a robbery by Mr. Freeze, and Mr. Freeze just gives up. He says it's great, what he says here. Take them back. There aren't enough diamonds in the world to save us. I've already stolen these twice. So you really get the impression that a year in and everybody's just going through the motions. Everyone is just doing what they think they should be doing, but because there's nothing at stake, because they are separated, because there's only them left, it's hard to find the motivation to do anything anymore. And Mr. Freeze is feeling this, and so is Barbara. Is feeling trapped and kind of apathetic about the whole thing after a year of just slowly dying out, I suppose. Um, um, After foiling the robbery, or after Mr. Freeze gives up, Dick has a run-in, a planned run-in. It's not a bump into each other, but Dick meets with Starfire, and they have a little talk on the roof, and they talk about needing to know that something still matters, and it's left up to us, I guess, to. I mean, maybe it'll be revealed in the second issue, but basically left up to us to interpret this how we may. Did they, have relations? I don't know. I don't know how to put this, but it seems like Corey was in a mood of doing more than just talking. Everyone has to keep their passions up somehow, I guess. Speaking of, Dick goes back to Barbara, goes home, and decides that he's going to take Barbara out on a date. Because, well, why not? They love each other. And we also get a little more world building here, and world building I really appreciate. World building they continue in another one of these books. That one of the reasons that Gotham has survived a year completely cut off from everything else is because Poison Ivy is tending to the garden and basically growing food for everybody. Even without superpowers, of course, she has a green thumb, so she's keeping everything alive essentially and making sure there's food. So yeah, Dick and Barbara go out for a date, and Dick proposes to her, and Barbara says no. Again, I think this is the second or third time this has happened in 75 years of DC comic books. But of course, interrupting their date are the Thanagarians, and they, instead of just, well, I mean, they fight. Dick comes out as Nightwing and fights the Thanagarians, but they are outmatched, and instead of completely killing Dick and Barbara and basically raising Gotham, they want to make a deal with Barbara, saying, you give up the city, we have nothing, like, the Thanagarians, they don't have a planet really to live for anymore, or to fight for, they're just fighting because it's in their nature, so basically the deal is, we won't destroy your city if you let us rule it, and if we win, this is our city now, and that's basically the deal. Barbara agrees to it, or seems to agree with it. Dick does not. Dick wants to keep on fighting. And of course we find out that this is just part of Barbara's plan, and being Oracle, always thinking 5 steps ahead, Barbara has started attacking the Thanagarians 10 minutes ago, which is just... It's great, because over the course of this book we're getting this running narration of how Barbara's feeling like giving up. She's just feeling apathetic and like there's nothing to live for anymore, being trapped on this alien world or under a dome. But we see in these last few pages, just having a threat, just having something to combat, made her just immediately spring to life. And if I'm getting the timeline of this comic correct, she was already formulating a plan to stop the Thanagarians before they attacked. Like, as soon as she saw them coming, she was like, okay, kind of time to jump right back into action. Which is very, very Barbara Gordon. And so yeah, again, really like this one, mainly for the world building, for really setting that tone of a year being separated, being isolated from everybody else, and you do start to lose that drive and that passion to keep on living, and then this shakes everything up. I think, again, just really good mood-setting book for this whole Convergence event. Next up, we have... I'm just trying to find my notes for this. I have the book right in front of me, of course. Here they are. Batman and Robin, Convergence #1. And again, this was one of the weaker books of the Convergence spin-offs so far. We begin with Poison Ivy in the garden, being strong-armed by Mr. Freeze and the Penguin, Killer Croc, and Black Mask. They're, of course, trying to force Poison Ivy into giving them the food so they can turn a profit, because I guess that still matters to them. But, you know, true to the title, Batman and Robin come to the rescue. Batman and Robin fight off the supervillains, also Man-Bat's there. Rescue Poison Ivy, thank her for basically feeding everybody. It's a pretty long fight scene, pretty good one. I mean, not great, not wonderful, but it's dynamic, keeps the action going, easy enough to follow. And then coming to Batman and Robin's rescue is Red Hood, who kicks Wayland in the face because he was chomping down on Batman. And just as soon as he comes, Jason leaves, basically saying he's got your back. But, you know, Jason Todd's kind of a dick, so that's all we have. Feeling a little jealous, I guess, of how open Batman is to Jason. Damian decides he's just going to go off on his own because this is impulsive Damian, I guess, still pre-Flashpoint. I guess Damian was more impulsive. And then I realized on this page with Alfred that we have an interesting possibility with Convergence, that we can have a whole bunch of Alfreds meet each other, and that would be the coolest thing. If we just get, like, Convergence number 7 or something, last page, you know, everything's gone to shit, they're doing the Hail Mary, and out of the shadows comes a team of, like, 80 Alfreds, and they're like, we got this, because Alfred's the best character in DC comic books. So, yeah, we have a jealous Damian go off, try to fight Jason Todd. Batman was like, gets in the middle of it, you know, stop fighting, you're both pretty. And then, at the end of this book, we have the dome come down, everybody gets their superpowers back, and the Bat family is immediately attacked by the extremists. So, yeah, again, in this book, not much world building, not much of anything. You basically just have Batman and Robin fight some villains, Jason Todd shows up, Damian gets jealous, fights Jason, and then Batman interrupts the fight. Like, it's not really doing much that you couldn't have done in a normal Batman book, should you have wanted to just have Damian and Jason Todd fight again. Yeah, the coolest thing I got out of that is me imagining what they could do with multiple Alfreds in a comic, so... Well, at least I got that from that. And then the last Convergence book I picked up was Convergence: The Question, number 1. The Question being one of, I feel, very underutilized characters for the 4 years now, I think it's been going on. Just incredibly underutilized, in my opinion, and I'm glad to see Renee Montoya also back in the role of The Question. And I just love this cover. I love her looking over the dome with the big question mark. One of my favorite covers of the week. So we have a monologue, Question monologuing, kind of wondering, well, not really wondering, just pontificating on what it's like living in a cage, as we've seen before. And as that happens, we see Two-Face raiding a pharmacy. And he kicks a whole lot of ass, actually. Two-Face proves he is a force to be reckoned with, and we discover later that this is part of a deal he has with Renee Montoya. He is recovering medicine for her to give to her dad, who is in the hospital. So that's that storyline. After that happens, we have Renee Montoya return home, where she meets the Huntress. She's apparently living with the Huntress now. They have a rapport or something going on. After a quick time at home, Renee goes out as the Question and has a little therapy session with Two-Face, who tries to commit suicide, as we learn that he does every night, or has done every night, I guess since the dome went up. But every night he lands good heads, so he stays alive one more day. And Renee is kind of bluffing him into giving up this, trying to bluff into thinking, okay, Two-Face, you want to be a good guy, you should just be a good guy, you don't have to leave it all up to chance. By taking the coin and flipping it and saying, okay, good heads, you let me live, bad heads, you kill me. that old gambit, I guess. And Two-Face freaks out, which shows that maybe he does want to do good and wants to live and help people. So, rounding these characters out a little bit. Then they get interrupted. Their little therapy session gets interrupted by the Convergence event happening, the dome coming down. Two-Face realizes that this means there might be other Two-Face, and if there are other Two-Faces, then maybe one of them will have the coin flip, the good enough luck to commit suicide for the both of them, or the four of them, I guess. Four Faces. And at the end of this book, Two-Face escapes, runs off to find another Two-Face, and the Question and the Huntress are joined by Batwoman to do the Convergence stuff. I do like the time they spent fleshing out these characters. I do like how a lot of this book was just the Question and Harvey Dent talking to each other and learning about each other's motivations and what they kind of want to get out of this event, and also how they're just, I guess, transitioning from their previous lives to being under the dome. We don't see much of her adjusting to the dome or living under the dome. We see kind of more of her transitioning from not being in the dome to now being in the dome, and just that initial transition. I guess more in this book than something just her growing more and more desperate. But yeah, the story, it doesn't have as big of a scope as some of the other tie-ins like Superman or Speed Force or even Nightwing, but it feels more personal. You're dealing with only basically two characters throughout this entire book who talk a lot about how they're feeling, really fleshing them out just as, people, which is, change of pace. Hard to say. I guess this is like the opposite benchmark that Speed Force was, where Speed Force is very plot driven. This is very character driven. So maybe we'll have more of these more character driven Convergence spin-offs. But yeah, that's that, I suppose. And that is the books for this week. If you missed the non-Convergence books, that is in the first part to this week's review series. So if you're interested in stuff like Howard the Duck #2 or the next saga or Odyssey, then go find that video where I review those books. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you feel like seeing more of this, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, yada yada yada, feel free to leave one below. And I hope you'll join me next week for some more comic book reviews. Thanks for watching.